Okay. All right, dear friends. So welcome for workshop, theoretical workshop with Ari Thoresen. It's workshop number 14. So Ari is already present. So dear Ari, if you're ready, over to you.
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. Um, as Andre mentioned just before we opened this, that one of you, was it Jordan, had done some time traveling. Was I right, Andre?
Yeah. Jordan is present. Hi, Jordan.
So, and I mentioned that some times ago, and so that is one of the first things. You see, you have to very short way over the threshold to the elemental passage, the element passage to the elemental world. You can travel in time. It's quite easy in a way. My problem is that I cannot stop where I want. When I start to travel, I go always too far. When you come over the threshold to the elemental world, that is, if you go to the left, you go back in time. If you go to the right, you go forward in time. If you go straight on, you travel in space. So this front-back axis is the gyroscope for space, and the left-right axis is a gyroscope for time. So I would like to hear then from you, if any of you, which I know some, have then been able to go into this time travel.
So I think it's mostly question to Jordan. Jordan, are you available? Just say a couple things.
Hello.
Uh,
Well, the first time I experienced this was when we practiced this in Vancouver, and you had us step to the left, and I I can't remember if you told us specifically to have an intention of where we were planning to go. I didn't hold a special intention, but I was brought to the scene of Golgotha, and it was in that moment a little bit I had like this overwhelming feeling of unworthiness, and so I pretty much left the scene right away and came back and was just waiting for everyone else to return from our practice in Vancouver, and I was just like sitting there crying, and I remember sharing my experience and telling that that's where I ended up. And so from that point, because that was in November of 2023, I think, is when we were all in Vancouver. And since that point, I've really been kind of unwinding that unworthiness piece of like why I felt so unworthy of being there to witness what, for some reason, I was trying to be shown, and why I was taken to that specific time in the past. And then over this last weekend of Easter on Friday, I was practicing my fading practice in the evening. And when I went to Vidar, he specifically told me again to do that practice of stepping to the left and going back in time. And so I did. And again, I was taken to the scene at Golgotha, but this time I was able to witness from the period of Jesus carrying the cross all the way through up until basically Joseph preparing the body in the tomb. And then at that point, because I think this was, I didn't like record how long I was in this process for, but I think it was longer than I normally practice fading. So I think it was about 45 minutes at this point. And at that point, it was clear that I needed to come back. And Vidar told me not to come back until Sunday. And so then on Sunday, again, I practiced and was shown basically like from what was going on Saturday through going through the earth and like these etheric changes that were happening, but I didn't have the concept of that. I didn't have like the vocabulary. I haven't like studied, like I have told many of the other people the other day when I was telling this story, I had no previous knowledge of the Bible, of the sequence of events or anything like that. So when I shared to my friend who was raised Catholic what I saw in the order that I saw it, he was like, that is how it's described in the Bible. And I was, it was shocking to me, honestly, that I was able to witness it in that way. And so, but that was all, that entire process was done through stepping to the left, but I didn't necessarily have that intention, except for the second time when Vidar told me. I kind of had a feeling, because especially because it was Easter weekend, and that there was something more that I was supposed to see. And so that's when Andre asked if I could basically share my experience. And so that's what I experienced this past week. And it was there's still a lot of integration going on, obviously, with it.
So what my problem is in this is to go exactly where I want. I never hit the exact goal. I miss the target every time. So I've been wanting to ask those who can it, actually, Judith von Halle. I tried to ask, but she is not easily available. So then I thought maybe you could tell how to land exactly when and where, but you can't, that's then I understand.
No, I don't, other than like the specific intention, which I'm sure you were holding, you're holding that specific intention of going there. So, yeah, and I think I remember in Vancouver when you were saying it was almost like a time wheel, and it was like, I remember you explaining that you went like too far back, and there was other people in the class too that was like, woo, they like went like dinosaurs and stuff. So, I don't know. I think, yeah, it's something that I think it would be good for us to explore, and myself, I can explore too, is like, see if there's a way that it can be more pinpointed, But yeah, I don't know. It's the question I ask myself too, like why am I shown that, like, but
Probably you'll go where you need to go. That is probably, I'm a little jealous that you go there, because that has been a wish. I usually end up in the Silurian age. Maybe I told that in Vancouver, like 180, 200 million years ago. That's where I usually end up. So
wow.
I, I want to go to Golgotha. That is have been a wish, but I haven't gone. Well, okay, thank you. Are there anybody else who have tried this time travel technique here in this group here now? Nah.
Here is slowest.
I had something happen just the other day, but I wasn't really intending to time travel. And I don't know why I got this crazy idea of taking a rose quartz point and capping it with a moonstone ring. So I put that on top of it. It was just an impulse. And then I faded And it took me to, not far back, my own life. It was just a point of my life where I first was fascinated by moonstone. I met my father in Cologne, in Köln. He was there on business, and I was doing my eurythmy training in Nuremberg, and I met him there. And in the museum in Cologne, there was a necklace of moonstones in their Roman museum, because Cologne was a Roman city, and they have amazing Roman artifacts there. They have a tile floor of Dionysus. It's gorgeous. Anyway, I saw this necklace, and the impression of it has stayed with me to this day. And when I found this moonstone ring with quite a sizable stone in it, I've been wearing it since, and that's been about, I don't know, less than a year. And when I put this moonstone on the rose quartz, it took me to my meeting with my father, and where he told me that he had just been diagnosed with heart murmur, and he knew he wasn't going to have a long life, and he was really shaken by that. And normally I didn't talk with my father one-on-one like that. My mother was always around. It was a very traditional family. You know, if I'd phone home from wherever I was, my father might answer and say, "Oh, hi, sweetheart, here's your mother." And so
Yeah.
really the mother that took care of the children. And this was, I think, one of the only times in my life that it was my father and I together. And he had a suite in a hotel, and I had my room, and he had his. And it was really a wonderful 2-day thing. And this, I think it was because of the moonstone, it traveled me back to there. But I've been fading with it since, and it is so powerful. Just holding it in front of me, there is such a power that it's reminding me of people who make those ridiculous wands, you know, those magic wands, and they put crystals together. That's a real thing. It really is. So I'm going to start combining different stones together and fading and seeing what happens with that. But I didn't do any significant time travel like Jordan. That was really so amazing, Jordan. That was really encouraging to all of us. So I'm going to pull up my bootstraps. You've shone a left and shown away, and I'm pretty lazy. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to work harder in the future because of that.
But Louise, what you described there is another possibility, not very far over the threshold, and that is tree occultism, that we have talked about earlier. So you have the possibility of time travel, past and future. You have the possibility of going in space, and you have the possibility of practicing the three occultisms. And what they do with these wands, that is, if we take that serious, which I think we should do, that is to practice the mechanical occultism. That is influencing the substance itself.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know how much you know about these three occultisms, but Rudolf Steiner said that we have to be able to practice the three occultisms before the year 5700, something like that. Andrew Linnell knows this very well. And these occultisms are practiced in the elemental world because it deals with elemental beings. And in this quartz, this rose quartz, and also, of course, moonstone, there are specific elemental beings. And when you then fade in there, you can then activate or sort of command, well, I don't like the word command, but I think it is a right word. You can command elemental beings. So if these elemental beings are also related to some happenings in time for you, you can also use it to go to that time.
It was a question for me about combining. If you want to go to a certain time, if you took your personal relic from that time or a relic from that time period,
Right.
could that take you there? Could you target through relic?
I was just to say that, and that is the foundation of this Catholic relic thing. If they have a tooth of a disciple or apostle, they can fade into which, you have this relic, you have the skull or tooth or bone or whatever, or saint this or that. And when you fade into that and go back, you can take it back in time, so you actually meet this person. And also that is in old times, they have that from Ireland, long barrel, when you went to these community meetings. And what you said there was much more important if you brought the skull of your father and your grandfather and your grandfather. They went to these meetings, community meetings, with a load of skulls. And the more skulls you had, the more important it was what you said, because you brought then the wisdom of your forefathers with you by having these and fading to them and asking them for advice. So that was common knowledge, actually, in those times.
Amazing. I have something else, but I'm going to let other people go and I'll come back to it. It's another thing that I've discovered. So, but I'll let other people speak for a while. I'll come back.
Anybody else on time travel?
Oh,
I think Sophia has her hand up.
yeah. I don't know really if it's a time travel, but I have, since I started try to merging, I have kept some notes, and I have a note on the last August, very similar of what Jordan has experienced. I didn't want to go back in time. I didn't know how to go, but I thought my intention is to meet with Christ. And I was very surprised to see that actually I came to the time of his crucifixion. I just saw him with the crown, the account crown, bleeding, and I felt I felt guilt. I don't know why, but I feel always guilt if someone's suffering. And I thought I didn't know what to do with this, and I just came back. I was shocked, and I came back. But and now that I hear that the past is on the left, whenever I merge with things, mostly it is on the left or the front, and never on the right. At that time, it was on the left. So
That is correct.
yes.
You have to go to the left to go back in time.
Yeah, so probably that it was the case. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if that it is a traveling or it was, I don't know how to explain it. Well, after that, in August, you came in UK, and we had an experiment on some sockets to see the aromatic elementals, to work with them. And so far before, I didn't, never really experienced black and white images. And it was the first time that it happened. And when I came back home, I tried to merge with my socket here where my chargers are. And it was the first time I see in black and white. I could almost feel the material that it was made, the socket, almost like it had like a foamy material on it, and then started to see some like ant insects coming out from it. And I thought that maybe is the time to try to Christianize, and I call upon Christ and Christianize the elementals there. But and I've done it twice, but since then I have almost an infestation in the house of insects. A lot of fleas, and even we had bed insects, bed bugs, which was never had bed bugs in my life. And I didn't know really how to manage to clear this infestation in a spiritual way, although I tried to do it with calling upon Christ. And I end up using some kind of liquid that has enzymes, and it is more like natural way to deal with this. But I felt like it wasn't the right way to really clear this, and I felt not right to do that. So please, I would like to know how, because I have a tendency when I imagine things, they kind of materialize, it appear in my physical life, in my everyday life. Like if I think positive things, they will come, negative things, they will materialize in a way. So I would like to know how to deal with these experiences.
Well, there I am not. You know, all these experiences are very individual and vary from time to time. So I ask them to go away, for example, think them away, think them something else. I cannot say exactly what to do. I know very little in a way. So what I try to bring is just a path into the spiritual world. And by the way, a few days ago, I found a lecture by Rudolf Steiner from 15, I think, and he said, we have to find the path into the spiritual world. We must go there. So I said, yes, that's right. That's what we try. So I don't have what to do with them. I don't know.
Steiner gave some remedies during his agricultural course, how to deal with insects. So, but it relates to vitalization of water and burning substance of insects, mixing, vitalization again, and spraying. So, and it's actually magical way just keeps insects, and I heard even bigger animals like wild boar away from the field.
What do they use? Do they
He-
use sprays or,
He used a preparation, but
or
it's
like
not.
a biodynamic agriculture?
Yeah, almost, but it's done in very interesting way because human being should vitalize water by himself. You know, it's just vitalization of water. It's you taking vessel and you are shaking in particular manner. So
Well, I know because I have a garden and I try to use the biodynamic way. When we have their pests, supposed to take certain amount of pests and burn them and then spray around.
exactly. I know
Yeah.
it's two ways. One is dry way, and second is wet. I mean, you spraying or drying. I believe it's just you spreading the ash. Yeah, but as I understand, I tried it. It works pretty powerfully because it's also removed some bigger animals from your land. You know, some people have been struggling with wild boars, wild pigs. So because they've been kind of destroying all crop and eating stuff right in the middle of the field, so they move. Okay, sorry, but you know, let's come back to. Okay, so it's if you're done, Sophia, you're good. Sophia, are you good? Yeah. Okay. So Bonnie is next. Bonnie.
Hi, Andre. Hi,
Hi.
Ari. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan and Lois, Sophia. Several things came to me while you were all speaking. The first thing was when Lois, you mentioned the wand, you know, kind of a silly thing, but I just watched one of my mentors last night, video, and she actually brought out her selenite wand, which is quite big. It's like a long white crystal of selenite, and it had some gemstones in it. But it's used for cleansing, so you can, you know, really wave it over anything and cleanse it. You can, you know, do the hallelujah in eurythmy to cleanse whatever you want to do, the space, a person, yourself, to bless something. And Andre, you were talking about this biodynamic mixture. I don't know it precisely, but I did read something that Steiner said about getting rid of insects, that you gather them up. I guess the dead ones, I'm not sure, I guess the dead ones, and you burn them and you sprinkle the ashes where you do not want them to come. There may be another process in between, but I'm not sure. When Ari was speaking, you know, the question was, you know, how do we target where we want to go? You know, when we step to the left to time travel to the past. And I realized, oh, I've been doing that, not only in the fading, but in my work with my dream work with people and my, I don't even know what to call it. It's just mentoring them, I guess. If they have a situation that they're curious about, if they have a dream that they've had, if they have an event in the past that, you know, where they had trauma or something happened they didn't understand, I ask them to remember, you know, to imagine that entire event or the dream or the question that they have, and imagine who's in the scene, who's, you know, where they are, what time of day it is, in as much detail as possible. And then I asked them, are you there? Are you have you got it? And then we step into that situation, into that dream, walk around and ask questions to the figures that are in the dream, the figures that are in that situation. And it's a spiritual research. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to say, another possibility, when Ari was talking, it came to me, why not make a map, like a tree, like a genetic map. They have these charts, of, your heredity, sorry, what's the word? Your heritage. And, draw the branches, put the dates, be clear about where you want to go, meditate on that path to get there. And then when you do your fading, you know exactly where you're going because you have a picture of it. So that was just an idea that came to me now. And I hope that's all helpful.
Or write down the year and the date and the place, maybe on the paper.
Yes. And yeah, and the left would be the past. And if you want to go to the future, put, what my life in the future, doing this and this and that, imagine it completely, and then go there, just step into it.
I will think about that. I will try that. Thank
I
you.
will think about it too. Not sure it'll work, but it feels possible.
Oh yeah, it is. It's just to find the right technique.
Yeah, and there's also the
The
mapping.
right technique for 60 years now, so it's time I find it.
And you can also map your dreams too, wherever you've been in your dreams. Draw a map of where they are, and then when you want to go back there, you know exactly where it is, where it's positioned. And you can have a dream of the past, of Golgotha or whatever it was, and then write the year, go there. It's got to be clear in your imagination. And, I suggest cleansing with Palo Santo, with selenite, with sage, with the Hallelujah before meditating or before fading.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bunny. So Elizabeth, yeah, go ahead.
Hi. So I'm not going to, what I'm going to say doesn't follow on to that conversation. Yeah, I've got so many different things going on, and it's just all a little bit different. So I'm reading a book. I mean, I've been trying to read this book for a long time. It's called, I'm sure you know it, many of you, The Secret Stream. And he talks about, the Rosicrucian path and the 7 stages of practicing. And I only will name the first 3. So, and he says it doesn't have to be in a particular order that you do these things. But the one was logical thinking and imaginative cognition and reading the occult script. So those 3 things is, absolute huge. It's like I don't need, I have everything I can do with just even one of those. And I'm trying to figure out how those things link up with the things that this group is working with. And also, I know that it's come up several times. People have said, what about fading into sound? And I think that's a really huge thing, fading into sound and fading into words. I don't know if that counts as fading, but yeah, it's a thing. It's something that you can do. I don't know if it's called fading or not, but it's sort of just going deeper into them. Yeah.
Ari, would you like to say something about it, or we can take another question?
Well, no, to fade into sounds, I just thought that somewhere in his lecture, Steiner talk about hearing the sounds of the birds in nature, the seagull, and fade into it, and that is no problem. That is very good exercise. Fading
Yeah,
into
this is same course what you're usually mentioning. It's Helsinki course 1912, April 3rd. But I think it's not the first but second lecture two. It's interesting because Steiner speaks about he didn't use word of fading, but mostly concentrating or merging with the sound, or keeping sound and concentrating on sound like a double sound active. And he gives a exact soul tune or soul attitude when person will meet or will concentrate on certain things like the blue sky and white snow and green grass, and also two sounds of active guitar, I believe guitar. So this is one inches, I forget, but April 3rd, so you can find it. I convincing all our group just at least read it, or maybe even work on it. So because as soon as people on this path, and this path given specifically for this particular group of people, maybe it makes sense to start not like from basic books, which can be super hard, like Philosophy of Freedom, because Steiner gave a few approaches, not a few, many of them, because some people are keeping themselves kind of rigid and they have only one way to approach spiritual world. But reading of Steiner, it was many of them. Thinking exercises, exercises on contemplation, etc., etc. Okay. All right. So Jordan again. Hi.
Hello. I have some other questions if that's okay if we move. Is it all right to move away from the time travel?
Yeah, well, no problem.
Okay. So I was curious if you could explain more the doorway of light. Maybe talk a bit more about what you've been seeing. I'll share what I've seen, and I'm curious if it reflects a little bit of what you've been seeing. Initially, when I would approach the doorway of light, I actually ran into Archangel Michael first, and I wonder if you saw him before you saw the other four guardians of the doorway of light.
It's very nice that you have that question, because just 5-10 minutes before we started, I thought by myself that should I mention that pathway or should I not? Because you know, the description of the path to the door of the sun is interesting enough. That is the Michael path or the Michael school. The description through the elemental world is interesting. And then you have the pathway on the path of death to the door of death, which is quite interesting. But the most amazing is actually the pathway to the door of light or the door of love, the fourth door. It is such an experience, and I'm working with that now every day and night for the last months. So and on, but I didn't think I should talk about it, but maybe I do a little because first, how do you get it was when I was in England last time, I really realized that I should talk more about it. Because how do you get onto these paths? That is very important to consider. Because to get on the path of the elements, you have to go into the elemental world and sort of activate your own elemental body or physical body. To go into the Michael path or the path to the door of the sun, you have to sort of activate your etheric body and go through the etheric. And then and 100 years ago, there were only two paths into the spiritual, the door of death or the path of death and the path of the sun. And that was the most important then, because and then Steiner had only that possibility to present this path. Today we have actually two more, because the elemental path is open and this path to the door of light is new. So now we have four possibilities, while 100 years ago there were only two or more, 1.5. Today we have 3.5. So what amazed me the most was that this path to the door of light, you meet with the Gospels. You meet with the birth of Christ. You actually go through all the Gospels. You meet with Michael, yes. You meet with Vidar, yes. He was present at the birth of Jesus. And then I saw, or what you realize more, is this pattern of the Gospels, of the life of Christ on earth. The first thing that amazed me most, that he didn't do much at all. He didn't say it himself, he didn't do it himself, he did it mostly through the disciples. And then I remembered, because somewhere I read that Steiner said the same. He said that the Pharisees, why did they need Judas Iscariot? Because, you know, Israel is a quite small area, and he had been going around, Jesus had been going around there for some time and being very observed by the Pharisees. And still, they didn't know how he looked. They needed Judas to point him out. And Steiner points to this and say that they didn't know how he looked because he worked mainly through the disciples. I don't remember what lecture he said this is, but it's a very clear memory of this. And that you experienced when you started on this path of light. You or I have a tendency to say you, but I must say I saw everything he said or did through the disciples. So the most important was who did what, when, and where. And that's why Jesus also said they had to go around. Now we go to this way, now we go to Jerusalem, now we go to Bethsaida, now we go to whatever. He went around to do the exact things at the exact spots. And this created a system, and that I followed for a long time. It created a 12-starred system, a 12 star, you might say, a 12-star. I thought about that when you talked about a 5-star earlier. And I thought what I've been working with is now actually a 12-star. And for each year of the 3 years, there were created a new 12-star system. So there were 3 12-star systems over each other in Israel at that time. And then came the crucifixion and the resurrection. And then these 3 systems went together in one system. That is one system of a 36-star system, which had 3 directions, almost like 3 men, 3 human beings, one with a head deep in the earth, one with the head in the sky, and one in the horizontal, actually creating a cross again. And yeah, so that is mainly this. What you learn on this path is actually the deeper reality of the Gospels. Well, that's very short of that path. I've been working so this path through the elemental world interests me for the time being actually nothing. It is only this that is interesting for me. So I would love that you go on this path, but then you have to activate, as I said, I forgot to say that. When you go through the elemental realm, you have to sort of activate or be conscious about your elemental part or your elemental body through the etheric body. You come to the door of the sun. Through your astral body, you have to activate that, go through with it. Then you come to the door of death. And to go through this door or on a path of light, you have to activate your I organization. So before, I haven't talked much about it because I thought that that was too difficult for you. Excuse me so much. Very arrogant of me. But in England, when I was in London last time, I was sitting there, thought, well, let's try, because we had this exercise which you have participated in on lifting your astral hand, you're lifting your etheric hand, lifting your elemental hand. And then I have let out lifting your I organization hand. Mainly because it took me a long time to understand, actually, many years studying, especially anthroposophic medicine, the I organization. That is sort of the differences of warmth in the blood and / relating to the marrow of the bones. But in London, they did it so easily. I was astonished how easy they could do it. And now I then urge you actually to do that. Go through the I organization, fade through the I organization, and then step on this path to the door of light through the deeper connections of the Gospels. That was a long speech to that question.
I know, I'm glad that you shared that because that's something that I've been working in post, like after this doorway of death. And I just want to say quickly with the doorway of death, what I've realized through my experience, which I shared last time, was related to a karmic pattern that I was needing to alchemize or transform in this life. And I'm curious if you would agree that the doorway of death is like a pathway of a purification of our astral body. Okay. Because that's very
Yes.
much what I experienced, was like it was me walking through that door, and the experiences that I've learned, and kind of like now that I'm more in the integration period, I can see it as a purification of my astral body. And so from there, I've been working with the doorway of light, and was shown a similar thing, not obviously not to the extent that you were, but what I saw was the four guardians, but then I almost saw like this old world map, like it was almost like an overview of like the map of where Jesus and the disciples were working. And I too saw a geometric pattern of, I guess I would just call them the deeds, and like where they were landing on the map, and like the geometry of that they were creating. But I wasn't able to see that it was a full 12-star system, although that makes sense. And now that you say it in that way, in that like the very specific points that each of these like star points were held within that map was potentially where like the earth was more permeable, like where the deeds of what they were doing, and like through the Christ was like also able to like penetrate in the earth in a certain way, that it was like creating the energetic kind of grid of that star system. Originally I thought it was 8-pointed, but it does make sense that it would be 12. So yeah, that's where I am. Oh yeah, and then with the eye organization, what I've noticed in the beginning, I kind of felt it like through the warmth of the blood through the heart, like the secret chamber, which I was talking about last time. But what I've noticed more recently was I feel like I become very immense, like very like like almost like when you meet Anna, she's like this like cosmic being. I feel like when I move through the eye organization, it's like I become just like huge. And I don't know if you experience that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
But that can happen actually on all these paths. This Alice in Wonderland, down the rabbit hole, where she was very small and then very big, and that is actually that can happen on all these paths, these 4 paths. So yes, that is a general. When you come into the spiritual world, size doesn't matter anymore. Time and size sort of vanish, and you can change it by will or intent.
Thank you.
So I will urge you all actually to try alternatively all the 4 paths, especially the eye organization. I never said that, as I said before, because I considered it difficult. And I was amazed in London when they said, oh yeah, but it's so easy. And I said, what? Is it easy? I was a little amazed. So then we worked with that, and now I dare sort of talk about it. Very good. I am so, because this is so interesting path, and this path has not been open before. This is a new path created by Christ himself, as so to say. Yes.
I'm glad you did talk about it, Ari.
Who said that?
I did, Elizabeth.
Oh,
Oh,
there
is-
you are. Yeah, I cannot see here, or there are who is saying that. Yes, I'm actually very glad I talked about it, because this is my main subject of investigation these last months, and I'm writing and writing every day about it. So after I published now this book, The Four Doors, I realized that the most interesting is the four paths. So I'm writing down now this book about the four paths. And then, of course, Glenn, he said that, why don't you write about the path before the doors? And say, yeah, that is logical, but I found that in the spiritual world, some things are inversed. So you find the doors before you have to go the path. Because if you don't know where to go, how can you then go the path? Well, so that is what I'm writing on for the time being, the four paths. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you so much. So Justina, next.
Yeah, hi. I had an experience of the eye organization through a different technique, but I feel like it was actually helping me. Hold on, I need to pull this camera. Helping me move forward in the fading exercises. And it was done through, it was in a group, and we separated from the elemental beings that were within us and from the effect. And I was actually being led in front of the whole group through this process. And it's, you separate from the effect, and then you go into the being, and you separate from the being. And I kept going back layers and layers and into, beings of my past, I believe, of and all the way into the presence of Joan of Arc. And I felt like I had so much to separate from before I was able to get to my eye. And we came back another weekend, and I was led through this exercise again, and I almost immediately was able to, at that point, connect with my guardian angel and feel his strength and his force. And then I separated from him, and I felt this overwhelming amount of sound surrounding my head. And I felt the presence of my left ear was so strong, and the eye came through my ear and down into my throat and into my heart. And it was this warmth of my higher self, and everything sunk into the earth almost. And from that sinking, I felt like I had the strength to then go into the path of fading and fading further as I kept going, knowing that I was here.
So you found the sort of eye organization by not going directly, but taking layers and layers and layers off, or go through, yes?
I had to take layers off of myself so that I could get to myself. Yeah, it felt like if I wasn't purified first, I wasn't able to have that experience. Otherwise, I wouldn't have recognized it. But the sinking, I was amazed by how my heart and almost my whole being, and what Jordan said, my whole being was as big as as big as the universe essentially, and or the room, but and everything was just sinking.
But at a certain stage on each way, I just mention it again, you will have the same experience. But that experience shows that you are on the path, and then you know what path. because that is where you started. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Kristen, you ready? Kristen?
Yes, hello. I am newer to, new to this group, and also newer to doing this work on purpose anyway. I have some experience with sort of spontaneously fading, um, especially during, beautiful days with blue sky and stillness and being calm. I get very sort of quickly and easily to that point of seeing all of the sparkles and the what seemed to me to be the energy in the air and all that, which now I understand is sensing the elementals, to begin with. But now that I'm trying to do this on purpose and go deeper with it, I'm finding it's a bit harder to get to that point. So I don't know if anybody has any advice for me on that front. And the other thing I'm noticing is, again, now that I'm doing this more purposefully with intention, I'm getting some more, I'd say, pushback in my dreams from what seems to be, angry beings that don't want me in their space, all kinds of sort of strange stuff. I do a lot of dream work as well, so these are definitely different experiences than I've been used to thus far. So I'd love some advice on either of those fronts.
What sort of advice can you say that more specifically?
Just with why I might be finding more resistance to getting to a place where I've naturally been able to get to before. I'm not sure why trying to do it purposely would make it harder.
Well, I think that is normal. So it's like to hit that is everybody who have live in a snowy area know that when you throw snowball, you have to say before you throw it what you aim at, because you can throw it and then you say, oh, it hit exactly where I aimed. So to be exact in this traveling is very difficult. To travel is actually quite easy, but you at least now I just talk for myself. To travel in time or space is quite easy, but to travel exact where you want, that is 100 times more difficult. So if that is what you actually described, I think that is quite obvious that it is more difficult. Did I answer what you asked?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I don't feel like I'm forcing anything. I'm just trying to recreate situations where I've had experiences before, but not either not doing it on purpose or not realizing even what I was doing. But now that I'm consciously more aware of what I'm trying to do, it just seems harder for some reason, and I'm just not sure.
It is.
know.
That is normal. Yeah.
Okay, so just keep trying, I guess.
Yeah. You have to train on being specific. Yeah. And try harder. And it takes more time. It's like throwing snowballs. To hit exact point is much more difficult than just to throw it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
Thank you.
I assume the dream stuff is also fairly normal for getting into doing this work.
Yeah, things, different things become activated, and that is also a little individual.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Elise? Next.
Hello. I was thinking that the things I've been working on were not really related to this group, and I wasn't even going to come today. But as you're speaking, I realized that actually what I've been doing is very related to this door of light. In the Holy Nights, I came to feel I needed to do a practice, specifically in relation to my mother, of trying to arrive at a place of unconditional love. And because, of course, it's a blood tie, and because there's the karma of the relationship, all of those things can be very difficult. So I connected actually through Elif Shafak, this Turkish author, with this idea of a practice for 40 days and 40 nights. So after doing my daily review at the end of each day, I would picture my mother as vividly as I could and ask to be able to join with the unconditional love that exists for her, as it does for all of us. And I went on a journey over that 40 days in which I was shown and given experiences that she experienced through her life. I was being given also experiences of how I experienced her from a different perspective. At a certain point in the journey, I had a lot of beings that came to oppose what I was doing, and they were very incredible negativity and hatred, and things rose up there. So long story short, what has taken place out of this practice is a freedom for me from any emotional reaction. And all of a sudden, all the things that were so difficult to try to create started happening without my needing to try to make them happen in the actual lived life of my mother and what she needs and what's happening for her. So then I started to support other people to do this practice, and I was doing it with a friend who we were doing it in parallel. I feel that what I was experiencing was connected to this fourth door, because I had taken up very actively this work of Christianizing and was doing it in many places, in many different settings. I think I spoke briefly about some things with bodies of water. So I don't know if any of this feels like to you like it's connected, but to me, I feel like it is related.
No comment at the moment. Thank you. Anthony.
Hello, hello, hello. Always good to see you, of course. Yeah.
You. The same.
Yeah. My time in the last few months have been taken up with working with diamonds of all things. I'm in part of a group that is trying to develop 5-hour-long documentaries around the world on diamonds. And so I've had a lot of exposure to diamond. I had a client years ago that was the first diamond mining company in Canada, and they developed some of the best diamonds in the world. And I produced quite a series of films for them. But anyway, the eye and the diamond and the portal of light somehow really resonate in me. And as Steiner says, that diamond is well, as the alchemists knew, is the philosopher's stone. And so I kind of wrestled with that, of course, because carbon, how can carbon be a philosopher's stone? But then you find that carbon relates to a million elements. It's the basis for life in general. Not regarded very well that way because, with the current trend to get rid of carbon, it's totally a demonic thing as far as I'm concerned. Of course, we create problems, but we can deal with those problems without the extreme that's being called for. At any rate, diamond, the light that passes through a diamond, and I've seen hundreds and thousands of diamonds in the course of filming. There's something incredibly special about sunlight going through a diamond. And it's not the cut, because it's the cut that gives you the glimmer and all the beauty of a diamond. But the actual diamond crystal itself is octagonal in form, or it can be a dodecahedron, which is even more amazing because that was the Greek concept of the universe, the 12-sided dodecahedron. And so I've been dealing with that and thinking that somehow light and the enhancement of sunlight going through the diamond, and the diamond being the philosopher's stone, the basis for life, essentially is carbon, and the eye is all related somehow. And I think that when one gets attracted to diamond, maybe the value, that's one thing. That's the material side of it. But on the spiritual side, I think it resonates within us. That somehow we feel that we're part of that process. And diamonds are created over 100 miles down in the earth. That's where the creation originally took place, under great heat and pressure. So it went through the carbon went through this alchemical process, this transformation. And it seems to me that that's our task in the future. That right now, as a matter of fact, we're going through a transformation. And eventually we become, as Steiner says, we become beings of light. Not like hard like carbon or hard like a diamond, but the essence of a diamond, the purity of a diamond. And so it's as a meditative path, to me, the light, and I'm spending more time with that now, the light and the diamond and the eye are becoming more of a task to work with. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree less. That was very good. Thank you. I think this fourth path is the most important. The eye and the light, yes, and the transformation. And also, when you come to these actions of the disciples, that it forms a 12, actually a dodecahedron, of both Israel and the world and the cosmos. So, yes. And it became, as I said, the 3 dodecahedrons. One connecting to the sky, one to the depth of the earth. You might say the Father, the Holy Ghost and Holy Spirit, and the Son, horizontal on earth. So within us, we have sort of not only the starting of the transformation of our physical body to a resurrection body, but also the transformation of this hidden man, you might say, within us. That is a reflection of this dodecahedric man that created by Christ and his disciples, that actually can then transform to a, I don't know what, some sort of Christianized structure, which is not a resurrection body, but sort of resurrection soul. I'm sure Steiner have described this somewhere. I don't know, but I have never read it. Maybe it was too early to describe it at that time. Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, one more, if I could add one more thing. That Steiner had said that anywhere that you have carbon, coal is carbon, graphite is carbon. He said anywhere, and we ourselves carry about, let's say, 100 pound of weight, physical weight. We have 18 pounds of carbon. And Steiner said that wherever you find carbon, you find diamond.
Yeah.
So that transfers into our being, our body, essentially, in that sense, that we are diamonds already, by the very nature that we have the carbon within us.
Ari, I'd like to mention Steiner's reference about process what we described. So, and if you know, this is anthroposophical leading thoughts, letters to members. And there is one which is with title Michael's task in the age of human freedom. So, and there Steiner described the process of how human being obtaining, as you said, but not a body resurrection, but in fact, it's start to obtain the spirit self instead of corruptible body. So, and process is quite interesting. That human being during the age of freedom, obtaining impulse of freedom, which is only can be in the human eye, in human ego. And astral body, because it's relatively young, supersensible member of human being, can vibrate together with human eye. But present ether body and present corruptible physical body, which are streaming from ancient Saturn and ancient Sun, they cannot accept this impulse of freedom and be with human being. So, and when human being having this process of freedom or impulse of freedom in human eye, he immediately starts subconsciously throw away influences from the cosmos which are giving supports to his physical and etheric body. And this is a process when human being practically starting to die, because cosmos not supporting him anymore in the physical and etheric, in his etheric body in old way. So this particular process becoming a big part of knowledge of his guardian angel. And guardian angel reports to Michael. And Michael is managing to deliver new forces for his physical and for his ether body from the future. Not from the past, but for the future, and specific out of event of the Golgotha. But this particular human being should have some relation to being of Christ. So, and you can see whole process, and when old forces will be stopped by human being, by the way, subconsciously, and then he start to suffocate without those supports. And Michael managing to bring new forces for his ether and for his physical body from event of the Golgotha, from Christ. So, and this is literally 2 pages, so you can find them, you know, if you just, I think all of us, we have to read it. So it actually shows that initiation of the present time can be done only with help of Savior, with help of grace.
That you should have written down and sent out.
Yeah, I mean, it's leading thought, if I'm not mistaken, 112. So they have numbers.
Yeah.
112 before 112.
112.
Michael's task in the age of human freedom.
Yeah.
So that's what Michael does to human being, which is in the stage of freedom. So he is practically saving his physical life by redirecting those streams. I will send to the group.
Thank you. Me too.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Lois, please go ahead.
This was something that is, we've been very profound, and I'm a bit embarrassed to bring this, but I wanted to do it at the end. And that's that I've discovered Artemisia. I was making these little lavender sachets as gifts for clients and so forth. And someone told me about Artemisia and lucid dreaming. So I ordered Artemisia from an herbalist and made these little sachets filled with Artemisia and started to tuck them into my pillows. And not only do you dream, I dream every night. And this morning, I woke up in a dream and with my alarm going off, and I just pressed snooze. I got to go back to exactly where I was in the dream and keep it on. The alarm went, I woke up, hit snooze, went right back into the dream again. So I have to recommend to people, it's very inexpensive. It's just a little leafy herb. It's just herbal Artemisia, and don't make a tea out of it. Put it in a little bag and put it in your pillows. And I've been offering these to people around me. And one of my friends has gone from being a decorative painter to an artist painting on canvases. He's dreaming his next paintings. And a woman in my building who claims she doesn't have a soul and she likes to keep her head in the sand. That's what's functioned best for her. She got one and she's dreaming. She said, "What's the use of dreaming?" And I said, "Well, it's enlivening your soul." She said, "I don't have a soul." So now she wants to talk to me. There are things going on with her. But that's it. It's just a fun little thing that Artemisia, I'm using that name because it's prettier. It's called mugwort. So I recommend you get mugwort and don't drink it as a tea. Just tuck it in your pillow, tuck it by your pillow. And it's amazing what it does for dreams. I dream every single night, and I certainly never did before. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So Rowan is next. Rowan?
Yes. Hi, Andre. Two questions. One, Andre, for you real quick. If you can, you were talking about the sound and the merging and where you can find more information on that. If you could put that in the chat or email that would be great. The second question I have, and I'm assuming then merging, that's the first question, merging into sound, you could then merge with any of the four bodies into sound, doing the same as if you would be merging with your eyes into like how we're doing in the northern path here. So that would be the first question. The second question is related to getting some advice from the folks here that have spanned the whole body of information from Steiner, looking for specific exercises that are targeted towards the heart. And to provide some context on that, I've been to the threshold 3 times. First time I was told by Vida to work on my shadow side, which basically self-esteem, doubt. The second time, I went to see how do I do that, different methods, what should I employ? And Vida said, it doesn't matter which method, but what's important is that you need to route it through the heart. And then he said, love is the path. Literally, I quote, that's how it came, love is the path. So when before I left, I had my doubts, ironically. And I said, well, what if I'm making this all up in my mind? And so I said, I'm just going to ask Vida. And I asked him, what if I'm making this up all in my mind? And to my surprise, what he said was, I'll prove it to you. Pay attention in your physical world. And so I left and forgot about it. And then a few days later, I was in San Diego driving up Highway 101 in the Encinitas area and came into a traffic jam. My wife was with me. And so my wife goes, look, your name. So I look over and there's an abandoned building. And on the building, it was painted white freshly. And there were black letters, big, bold black letters. And it said, Rowan. And then it wrapped around to the next face of the building and it said, Rowan, love is the road. So I took that as the sign, although I probably could have put myself into doubt even then, but my wife said, are you crazy? How how much more do you want to spell black and white? But anyway, so after that, I ran into a body of information. It's non-anthroposophical, but it had to do with the heart. Simple exercise opening the heart. But I want to find what Steiner said. In particular, I'm not interested in reading everything under the sun about it, but simple exercises you can do to open the petals of the heart, or the other 6, or just getting an idea. And so that would be my second question.
Those were not specifically for me, I guess. This last question, I think, would more be some more learned participants like Andre or others. This fading you mentioned, you can do that through all the 4 aspects or bodies, yes, and then you get different places. But the method of walking in the spiritual is always you have to go out of your body and then into something. And this is what I call fading. And Steiner have described that in several aspects, as Andre mentioned, both in this sound, going into the colors of nature. I think he did that all the time. He went out of himself and into something. And if you do that consciously, you get different places. He preferred my anthroposophic doctor, which I met when I was around 21, told me that it was a question, where from do you go out of the body? And she told me that Steiner was asked that question, where do you prefer to go out of the body? And he said, I prefer the liver. And then he smiled and patted on his liver. That was in a conversation with Carl Koenig. So yes, he was actually very aware of this, but didn't, in my opinion, describe it enough, because today it is almost like people don't know anymore how to walk into the spiritual. The other questions I leave for the others. Wake up, wake up.
Dear friends, don't be shy. So Ari is here. You don't have to travel in London or in Norway. So please ask your questions. Okay, Patty.
But it was a question of heart meditations, but from the one who talked lately.
Yeah, if anybody can point me in the direction of exercises for the heart, opening up the heart and the petals of the heart, in particular, let me know, so I don't have to go hunting. You'll shave off 8 months of my life by asking this group. So if you can't think of it now, you can just email me or just let me know. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I'm going to ask a question, but if you go to Rudolf Steiner audio, which I love very much, because you can look at all of Steiner's lectures and they are read to you. There's a whole section on the chakras. And I don't know if there's actual exercises, but Steiner describes all the chakras and what their purpose is and what you need to do about them. So I don't know if you look at Rudolf Steiner's audio. Have you ever done that?
I have been there, not lately, but yeah, I've listened to
Well,
some.
if you go on the list, you can just scroll down and you can go through them and you'll see them listed under chakras. I think that's what you're asking, the petals of the heart. I think I seem to work from my third eye a lot. So I enjoyed reading those chakras. I wanted to still go back to traveling because I bought the book, which Ari asked us to do last time.
Yes, tell me about that book.
Yes. So my question was, I thought it was amazing, especially because it was written in like 1915, and how he's a prisoner and tied up in jail and he travels. And he's traveling. And my question for you about this was, why did you ask us to read that? Because you felt that this would help us travel.
Yes.
But I wondered whether the traveling that he did, was he traveling into past lives, or was he traveling just all over the place? Were these his past lives he was traveling?
No, it was more the description how we got into the traveling, and that's,
Yeah.
I think, was exactly, although it is for me now 60 years since I read it, but
Right.
and I have read it only once, but it seems that this description, because already at that time when I read it about 10, 11, 12 years, it fitted very well what I did. So I thought, this is true. This is right.
And that's extraordinary that he wrote that in 1915.
Yeah.
Because you're right, the fading is what he's describing because he's physically restricted. But I don't know if his eyes are open or whether his eyes are closed, but he is definitely fading and then traveling outside of his body. And he's talking about this in 1915.
Yeah.
I think I never think of it as time travel, I guess, because I'm trying to think about when you ask these questions, whether we're traveling. I've definitely traveled through space, because I remember the first time it happened after about 1.5 years of fading, I felt I'd left my body and all I could see was darkness, but light sort of coming towards me. And I really thought I was in space. And when I finally came back into my body, I thought, that's what traveling is.
Yeah.
And so I actually experienced it for the first time. I definitely travel in my dreams a lot. I don't travel so much in my fading. I feel like I'm going through to the elemental worlds and everything.
Yeah.
Definitely, because I'm seeing the structures and everything.
Yeah.
But in my
No, the
dream,
traveling is a thing you can do in time. That is a sort of game I played with myself around 17, 18, 19, 20. That was sort of a game.
wow. Yes. I can see how when you talk about how it's attractive, to do it, fading, it becomes like it's actually enjoyable because you feel
Yes.
like you're seeing such extraordinary things. It's almost
Just
yeah.
like Jack London, that's how he described. And I'm sure if I had been put in prison for
Yeah.
20 years, I would have traveled very far.
It's usually something in the physical world, like my dogs or something, that usually brings me back because the need, the people that I'm caring for, the animals, and they're the ones that always bring me back. But otherwise, I can just spend a lot of time traveling. I did experience through a dream moving backwards through time, my physical body moving backwards through time. I thought that was an extraordinary feeling. And I was moving backwards through time. I think it was past lives where I saw a monastery, the Goetheneum, I saw countryside. And as I was traveling physically, my body's moving backwards.
Yeah.
And then I came to what looked like a tunnel. I went down this tunnel and I ended up in a stable with animals, with a horse, and I was holding the horse. And again, I'd never really, in this life, I've never really been around horses. I've always had dogs. And I thought, oh, I had horses at some point. I knew all of a sudden my relationship with animals was to do with horses.
And
So
what you said there was very correct because you said you went through a hole. You see,
yeah,
when you travel back in time, you travel. There are at certain points, there are holes.
it
And
was like a tunnel.
and that is this former life. So you have to go down that hole, down the rabbit hole in a way.
Yeah.
And then you come to different lives. And then you can go exact, but that is what I work with is to decide where to go unrelated to former lives, that you can go to wherever you want.
Okay, well, I don't know how to do that, but maybe I'll start focusing on that because I've had dreams where I've met you in a circle and we shook hands. And on the outside of the circle, far away, was a group of what I would consider my anthroposophical friends, teachers that I'd known from years and years ago. They were at a distance, and between us was a young woman who was really suffering. And that I felt like, oh, I'd arrived somewhere in a space, in a circle, where you were traveling at the same time. Because I know you said you have people that you work with that you traveled together somehow. Was it a group in Copenhagen or I'm not sure. Anyway, I thought I should be able to travel and meet Ari somewhere. I should try that. Anyway, that was a beautiful one. And then I think it was Jordan was talking about I haven't met Vidar, I don't think. I feel like I'm crossing the threshold all the time, but maybe because I'm asleep often in my dreams, I'm not conscious. I'm not meeting the guardian. Because I feel like I've been at the door of death and I refused to go through. It was a wall with 3 faces, what I thought were death masks. They were like masks of dead people, which lots of cultures do. And one of the masks started moving towards me, and I looked at it and I said, "What?" And then I looked to my left and there was a tunnel. And I looked down the tunnel and I said, "No, I'm not going there." And then I turned to the face and I said, "Rest in peace." And I just walked away. It was like it ended. So I have been traveling.
You're a little chicken then.
Well, because you keep talking about fear, and I have had so much fear.
Okay, but you have to be brave.
Well, what I want to know is how do I get back to the door and say, "Okay, I'll go." How do you get back to that door? Because
I think by refusing, you sort of delay your development for a certain amount of time.
yeah,
It's like trains. If you don't get on the train, there
Yeah.
is a certain time till next train.
Yeah.
So you have to wait. And that time can be 2-3 years. It can be 10 years. You have to jump on the train when it's there.
Okay. Okay. I think because I feel like I'm a very brave person, and although you've talked about fear many times, I have experienced the fear and sort of pushed through it. That time I didn't. I don't know why I didn't just go down.
Okay. No, I was just teasing.
Yeah. But I do sometimes wonder, if we're all heading down these paths that you're setting us on. I hope I can be helpful.
Mm.
Because I'm not a medicinal person, although I like to think of myself that way. I'm more an artist, and I don't know how I'm going to be helpful, except maybe in the future
Mm.
to the spiritual world.
We will if we go there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Ari.
All right, thank you. So, friends, any more questions? Oh, Sophia is raising her physical hand. Sophia, go ahead.
I can't find the other hand anyway. Part of our personal spiritual development, going through this merging and developing our understanding and meeting the guardians. I mean, we are in a very difficult time of what's going on in the world right now. And I actually come to anthroposophy having negative experiences, actually from dark magicians, psychic attacks. Because before I wasn't aware that there is a spiritual world at all. Anyway, on this life. So I was wondering, these practices are part of our personal development, spiritual development. How can help what is going on? I mean, we see our world is going from darker to darker, seeing what's going on. In attack on our weather manipulation, our DNA manipulation, our knowledge, everything is changing in a negative way. I know that it's a process that it will serve in the future for our understanding and discernment. But while we are now, how can we use these practices in order to help
That
the collective consciousness in a way?
That is to Christianize the elemental beings that are involved in these things. You can Christianize the elemental beings in weapons. You can do it in electric devices. You can do it in poisons, even toxins. You can do it of vaccines. You can Christianize the elemental being of vaccines and take away the negative effects. So that is what we can do today. That is, I have done that for many years, and I have many friends who do it, and it is actually, believe me or not, very effective. It changed the whole function of these things you mentioned. Weather manipulations, chemtrails, vaccines, weapons, and so on. by Christianizing, but then you have to go into the elemental world, find the elemental beings that are involved in this action or this machine or this thing, and then Christianize them.
Shall we do it like individually, or it's better if we practice like in a group, or to learn how to do it properly? Like, for example, I had this experience with the insects, tried to Christianize my socket over here. And, you know, it's like I released the whole world outside and I didn't know how to manage it.
Mm.
So is it like a group that or other people that we can connect and practice together?
Yeah, we have this, yeah, well, we have actually talked about it in this group. We have practiced this a little fourth or fifth time we were gathered, and we practiced this Christianization of the elemental beings, bringing Christ in. Of course, we can do it again next time, for example. Or what do you say, Andre?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe we can just do it now, like for 5 minutes or so. What do you think?
I can describe how I do it. I will do it very shortly. Not this could be a half an hour story on how to do it. But you have to somehow observe the elemental being, either by sight or by hearing or by any of the senses or by feeling. You have to observe the elemental being somehow. And then in this elemental being, or between two, the easiest is between two. A little more difficult is within one. And then you have the Asuric beings, you have to do it within. Then you make a crack. You make a crack, or you open the little space that often is there. And you have to open that with your will and your consciousness. When you then have opened this crack or this distance between two elemental beings, it can be even a Luciferic and an Ahrimanic or / Asuric, then you invite Christ in by using your vocal cords. Not just thinking it, you have to say it. Like Christ say that everyone who do this in my name will be heard or will have an effect. He say exactly something like that. Then his name give us in a way authority to transform an elemental being. And then Rudolf Steiner describe this change of an elemental being into a Christianized elemental being by describing it that they then get moral. They become morally equipped beings. Another way he said it, and which I observe very clearly, is that they get a heart. And that is also described by H.C. Andersen, the Danish fairy tale writer, where he described the little mermaid. When she obtained love from a human being, she got a heart. And then, according to Rudolf Steiner again, if an elemental being have been Christianized, it cannot hurt. So, for example, you have a vaccine, well, what was his name? COVID vaccine that has side effects. Then when you Christianize the elemental being of that vaccine, it works only positive, then you get the positive side of it. That means the vaccine effect, and you get rid of the side effect. For example. Yeah, that was a crash, what's it called? Crash course in Christianizing elemental beings.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, Sophia?
Yeah,
Was that
I use this methodology because I'm a therapist to clients. I call upon Christ when I
Yes,
treat
yes.
people. But as I said, when I tried to do it on the harmonic, the actual electrical device, it didn't work very well. Do I need to repeat it several
No, you
times?
have to reach the, you see, you have practiced probably what is called hygienic occultism. And that is the superficial part of the elemental. That is the first thing. To go into the machine, so-called mechanical occultism, that is the Ahrimanic, you have to go deeper.
Okay.
And to do with the Asuric, you have to go even more deep. So you must transverse the elemental world deeper. Then you can have an effect on machines or electric devices or whatever. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Penetrate deeper, and then you will see something happen.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So Mary Tom is next.
Hi, Ari, the crash course you just gave us, I think answers perfectly the question that Kirsten brought a while back about having had just spontaneous experience of the elemental world, and why doing the exercises or doing it consciously is important. And I found that same thing. I since I was a child, I've had just very spontaneous experience of the elemental world. And yeah, that's nice and good, but what do you do with that? And once I started learning these exercises and actually doing them in consciousness, that's when I found that I could engage these beings, and I had the potential to mitigate the negative work they may have been doing, or as you say, to Christianize them, because without doing it in a conscious manner, in a very directed and willful manner, you don't have the opportunity to see, first of all, where they were out of whack. I never knew that there were ones that were out of whack because I was just experiencing the good ones, you know, but then having the ability to be able to work with them is just such an overwhelmingly beautiful activity for a human being, you know, to have that capacity, because it's there, you can see the work to be done. And so I think it's so important, because we can't do that Christianizing work without being conscious of what is there to be done or what they're asking us to do. So again, thank you for that.
No, we have always to be conscious, otherwise it doesn't work.
And it is harder, though. It is harder sometimes to engage it, to do that work. It's nice to go out and just have experience, but it's so much better from the to know what you're actually doing and who you're talking to and all that. So yeah.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. Okay, so dear friends, we're working for 2 hours almost. So maybe we can set a date for next workshop, which is really a number 15 already.
Oh, wow. We are still going on.
Well, but I think it's great. So we have online school, practically school, and I can see great progress. So it grows. Yeah, so we look in June.
June, yes.
June, it's so, and this is
Yeah.
5th, 12th, 19th, 26th. I'm sorry, it's wrong. Okay. 21st, 28th.
We have, I would suppose, oh, that is, I have, and we need to do it this Saturday.
Well, we have some friends from UK and from Europe, Central Europeans, and US, of course, Canada, Mexico now. So it's like 11 o'clock.
Either 14th of June or 19th of July. Between there, most Saturdays are occupied.
Well, so 14 will work. 14th will work.
Yeah.
So let's pencil it, or just let's say 14th is the next.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Yes.
Yeah, just one technical thing. So, dear friends, I'm sending you links, and if you have weak email account, sometimes it's bouncing back or people not getting. So, I would recommend to get some Gmail account. So it's looks like it works good. So so I sent 3 times to a friend, to Nancy. And she has some kind of custom account, so it's she never get it. Okay. So, dear Ari, something else, or dear friends, last short question. Or you have a son? Ari, you have a son.
The sun is setting. I try to avoid it. There.
You have sunset almost in Norway.
Yeah. Yeah. Sunset.
Okay, so we have long pause. So it means we are complete for today. All right, dear friends, thank you.
Did you ask me something?
Yes, sure.
I didn't get it.
Yes, sure.
What? Sure.
So, I mean, you said, so you would like to ask something, or you would like to say something, right? No?
No.
Okay, so let's say thank you. Let's say thank you to Ari, and let's meet in June, or we can meet also for practical workshop. I believe it's going to be May 26th or 29th. So let's check. So
Thank
practice,
you.
practice, and practice.
Thank you.
Practice.
Goodbye.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye, friends.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.